I think I started as a barber by accident, I would say, because that was not my initial idea. To be honest, I never ever knew how much a barber could make. You can be a barber and put yourself in the shop and just be there, I don't know, 20 hours a day. Nobody is giving you the warranty that you're gonna fill up those 20 hours. You can put the time, but you cannot put the demand on the door.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the What It Takes podcast. I'm your host, Darren, and I'm joined today by Salva. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me today.
Absolutely. Just a quick backstory for everyone. Salva is a barber. I would say you're my barber now because I'm going to come back very soon.
Whenever you want.
Yeah, so you're a barber, and one of the things that really stood out with you, and the reason why I wanted to have you on the podcast was because you had such a positive mindset, and we just briefly spoke about mindset, but it really stood out because it seemed to me that you've gotten to the stage where you are so content with life, right? You exercise regularly, you have, decent routines, you have good nutrition, all of these things. So I'm very excited to just really learn more about how you got to the point where you're at now. Because, you also mentioned that you've had some struggles throughout the year, right? It wasn't always upwards like this. It was a little bit of a roller coaster.
Yeah. Like the stock markets, it always goes.
Yeah. So
within the year, I would say within my life, I had a lot of those, but yeah.
And, so today you have your own business, your own barbershop. So you're not just a barber, but you own the barbershop. But give an overview, like in terms of what is your barbershop? Why is it unique? What makes it good?
Yeah. So our barbershop, or my barbershop, it's actually based in Oslo Centrum, so the center of the city. We started in 2018, and it's a concept where we wanted to embrace or try to fusion mostly traditional barber service with a modern twist, with a bit more contemporary. We have seen that the barbershops have boomed in the last, we could say, decade or the recent years. But there was a bit of a difference, like we have barbershops which are either too modern or either too old school. So we didn't want it to be categorized in nor of those. We wanted to have a venue which is kind of family friendly in that sense, not like very upscale, that like a man cave, nearly something which is very much modern, where only the most hip people could basically visit. And we had very good response from our clients. So in that sense, I think, well, you've been there. It's a fresh kind of space. It's like
very clean as well.
Very comfy to work there, and I feel also to be there. So I don't know, it's a nice spot. Many times when I finish and I lock the door, I even do like a few steps on the other side of the road to look, because it's a corner or the venue inside it. And then I look to the shop and I say, wow, it's a really cool shop, you need to have a feeling.
Yeah, it's awesome that you have that feeling with your own shop as well. And you also just mentioned that you had, was it your record month, like last month in March?
Yes, definitely. So last month, I managed to make nearly $20,000 just on my own. So basically, Norwegian kroners, it would be a little bit over 200,000 Norwegian kroners.
Yeah.
So for me, that was insane. So it's not the turnover of the whole shop. It's just me. I'm just talking individually. So for me, it blew my mind, because I was always trying to say, let's see if I can get there. Let's see. It was like a goal, like a long shot. As I said, I managed to get very much fully booked schedule throughout the month with what we discussed before off podcast.
Yeah.
And it worked out. So
that's amazing, man. Do you think the spring is coming now? Do you think that had a result as well? Or what do you think made it What gave you that fully booked month?
So okay, it could be also. I wouldn't say no, because it's, let's say, when once the weather starts to shift, and actually in Oslo we had a month of March where the weather has been pretty nice and decent,
Mm,
and usually people get a bit more motivated to get a haircut, to start to have a bit more social life. It's definitely a different picture to what
mm,
it is in the winter months where it's dark and cold,
yeah.
and people have beanies and they don't think so much about having a haircut, or if it's a bit too long, it's okay, because we need a bit extra layer for
Yeah.
the comb. So yeah, it might be, but usually, okay, from March to August is kind of, we could say, the high season. But
Mm,
I would say within that period, the stronger months are May,
mm,
June, and August.
right.
So if this happened in March, I don't know.
Mm,
I expect something even better or bigger in
that's awesome.
those.
And you also mentioned just off the podcast just before we started recording that a lot of it had to do a little bit about mindset, right? Like the
Mhm.
positivity going into the barbershop, what you tell yourself. Talk to me a little bit about the mindset that you had and how you think that resulted in good client retention and people coming back, because that's what they did, right?
Basically, yeah.
Yeah.
So this is something that I learned the hard way, I guess,
All right.
because I had a lot of falls within my career, and I realized a bit that about that. Sometimes I'm a very, or sometimes no, all the time I'm a very transparent people, and it kinda is difficult when someone asks me, "Hey, how are you doing?" and I'm not doing good, to say something that is not my best moment right now. It's so obvious. You have noticed that, so
Yeah.
not very conscious on the topic, but I started to talk a little bit about that, right? And then that's also what I realized, that is like, when you talk about problems, you basically give them more importance, you make them
Mm,
bigger, and then you get more into this kind of negative or aspect of doing things. And also, it kind of, people feel like, oh, they understand you, but nobody wants to listen to problems, especially not
yeah.
when getting a haircut. Everybody
Yeah.
has problems in their own life. So if you are the guy just talking whatever it is, negative stuff from, any situation, it could be your stuff or it could be political situations, you name it.
Mm, mm,
So, in that sense, I realized that when you keep a positive mental attitude, you attract different people, but also you deliver different experiences. And it's not related to the results or the skills, that, of course, we understand that you need to deliver a certain
mhm,
quality.
mhm.
But it's also the experience, the time spent
Yeah. Yeah.
between the professional. It's like you build up those strong links of chemistry,
Mm,
and that makes, like, you, when someone feels good with another person, obviously you want to come back for more,
yes.
because you remember that, and then you talk to your friends. Hey, I was the other day with that guy, with her, got such an amazing experience. We were talking about, whatever topic you bring to the table. So yeah, I try to always kind of document myself. I like to read a lot, and I like to bring up topics that could be highly interesting. So
Mm,
it's not just to have a haircut or just to talk about whatever, you know football or
yeah.
anything, or whatever happened on the sports TV. Which, okay, I could discuss, but I don't know. I like to go a bit beyond that.
But it's very true what you're saying, though. I mean, I've gotten dozens of haircuts throughout my life, and whenever I have a barber who is actually interesting to talk to, it does something with the experience, right? And I think you can definitely tell a difference in terms of, well, I can only speak from my personal experience, but I'd rather come back to a good barber who, delivers a good haircut, whom I had a nice conversation with, as opposed to another barber who I also got a good haircut, but like no conversation or boring conversation, especially not problems. Like once, they start talking about problems, and I can get that, like no one wants to talk about problems, and it does bring that negativity as well. Um,
Exactly.
but Salva, I mean, like you're making, 20K now as a barber, but which is amazing. But it wasn't always like this, right? I mean, you as we mentioned in the beginning, it was a little bit of a roller coaster in the beginning. So
No,
what
not so
was your
well.
you know, what was your barber journey like? I mean, how did you first of all, how did you get started?
So,
Let's start there.
mm, well, I think I started as a barber by accident, I would say, because that was not my initial idea. Firstly, I wanted to enter a college, but I didn't manage to get the proper grades. So I was struggling on my last years on the bachelor,
Mm,
and I wanted to study just to satisfy my father, agricultural engineering, so which
yeah.
I couldn't enter because as I said, I failed on the last, you would say, exams, so I didn't get the grades, the marks, so then it was no room for that. I needed to catch up, it was a long process, so I said maybe that's not my way, so let's move on to something else. And the first idea I got was like I wanted to become a professional cook. uh,
Mm,
but I come from Spain. I come from the East Coast. All the big and important schools for gastronomy, cooking, and so on, they are in the north. And I discovered that they are very expensive when I started
right.
to. So obviously, after failing in to access university, and I was coming from a private school, which is obviously not free. But yeah, my parents, they were not for paying me more studies to become a cook or so on. So then I had to figure out something. So I was discussing with my, in that time, barber,
Yeah.
about this, and it's very expensive. My parents, they don't want to pay for that, blah blah blah, and so on. And then he brought to the table, "Hey, why you don't learn this craft about being a barber?"
Mm,
Well,
mm,
I never thought about that, but yeah, why
yeah.
not? Where did you study? And then he told me. Went there, they had a vacancy. A few weeks after, I was enrolling, and there I was trying to
Yeah.
learn this. In those times, it was not, we have to say that it was not proper barber education. It was
Okay.
basically general hairdressing
Mm.
with a little bit of focus on men's haircutting. No shave,
Focus.
no beard trims.
Mm, right.
So,
So it was
that
more like a
was
general education in terms of like
general
very
hairdressing
general.
with blow drying, with
Right.
permanents, with
Okay.
coloring, with
Yeah.
rolls, Yeah.
I mean, I guess it's a good starting point though to kind of figure out what it is that you like, especially if it's your first time, right? Because then you're exposed to so many different kinds of niches within the barber space that it's like, oh, I like doing the permanent stuff, or I like doing women's hair or men's hair. But you enjoyed more men's haircut, like, doing them men's
The
styling or
funny thing was that when I started my education, I didn't like it. So I thought, wow, a fail. So, okay, I made a big mistake. I thought this was going to be cooler,
yeah.
but I felt a bit at some point, I don't know, ridiculous. And I didn't enjoy that. So, and I remember the first time they gave me a men's model to get a haircut, we already had a bit of, yeah, they explain us the haircutting techniques, the basic haircutting
Mm,
techniques, right? So, which I'm not gonna now dive in, but let's say the most basic one for women.
right.
And the first time I got the model, it was a man, or
Mm,
not the first time, but in that time I got a men's model, and they gave me a clipper, and I was shocked because I said, "But we haven't really studied anything about men's haircuts." And they told me it's the same like the basic haircut, but shorter.
yeah.
I was like, "What?" So I struggled so much in that doing that model that it was a gentleman, that I say to myself, I'm not gonna feel the same ever. I want to
Mm,
be much more prepared.
mm,
So that was a bit like, okay, I had a really difficult time, but at the same time, I did enjoy it, because
mm,
the way that man behaved to me, he saw my face and he was very much encouraging me and said, don't worry, it will be all right. You will see how you manage and blah, blah. So in the end, I was like, wow. And he did so much for me that I kind of had to, pay him back
mm,
by learning that skill. And that was
Yeah.
what led me to dive into the barber, basically education, proper
So
education.
yeah, so and did it because you mentioned that you didn't really like it in the beginning. Did that, but it sounds like that made it more fun, more interesting because now you had like this motivation to improve.
Exactly, because in the beginning I felt a bit like, I was the only guy, the rest were all girls. So I
Mm,
felt, okay, I'm doing something which is very girly. So, it kind of
yeah,
hit a little
I
bit
can see
my
that.
pride, let's say.
Yeah, yeah. And at the time, like if you knew back then, even when you were with those girls, if you knew back then that, today you'd be making 20K in dollars as a barber, would that change how you saw it? Or would it still be like, yeah, I don't care, this is, whatever word you want to use.
To be honest, I never ever knew how much a barber could make.
Mm,
Never. So I took this in order to, okay, let's try this. And I didn't know. I had no idea about how much money a barber could make. But yeah, so I discovered it quite quickly,
mm,
because first I work as a barber or as an employee, which of course I got a salary, but I was doing a bit extra on the side. And then by age 21, I opened my first shop.
mm.
And yeah, that was
How
basically,
how did that go?
it went great, to be honest.
Mm,
Uh, it's in 3 months, basically, I managed to get full schedule.
that's amazing.
Yeah, that was 2002 or three.
Yeah,
So it was like over 20 years ago.
yeah.
And I remember in those times, it was already the euro was implemented, because Spain had a different currency before
Mm-hmm.
2000. And then in 2000, they introduced the euro. So yeah, and I remember my record was to make €6,000
Wow.
as a barber.
Yeah.
Uh, so in those
And
times, 20 years ago. So
and then, like, you were a barber in Spain, started your own shop at 21 years old. How did you then end up in Norway? Like what happened in between those years?
all right, oof, a lot has happened. We're going to open Pandora's box now.
I mean, we
All
can we
right.
can we
So,
can speed run through it, but like overarching overview, what happened? Like how did you
I invested in more businesses because I was doing okay. I got bankrupt. I got a really huge debt, and then I wanted to try to fix that. And then I discovered that doing education, I could easily make much more money than those 6,000. So I
yeah.
tried that. I had the luck to do international education, because by then, since I studied in my young days or as a teenager, I studied in the French school of Valencia. So that was the
Okay.
Lycée Français. So I spoke French by then.
Mm,
I spoke English and also Spanish. So that combo led me to get first in my country in terms of doing education, and then a little bit in Europe.
mm,
And that brought me to Norway, actually.
mm.
It was by doing a seminar. I came here. They saw, well, basically how I perform, and they they offered me basically to help up on the startup of a barber business. And I was
Mm,
also involved, and was a co-partner in that project too.
mm.
So
And then because the one you have now is fully yours, right?
yeah, we are two partners. I have 50%
Uh-huh.
at the moment. So we are two. We had like a silent partner and me. So, but we'll see. I think it
It's a
might be
journey
end
though.
as I get I buy the full concept, because I don't think he is very interested
Yeah.
in buying that. But yeah, it's fine.
But it's a crazy journey, man. You started your own barbershop, then you went bankrupt because you started investing into other businesses. Because your initial barbershop, that didn't go bankrupt. It was because you invested into something else,
That's right.
right? And then Yeah.
the barbershop never failed. It was
Yeah.
always perfect.
Yeah. It's like, I have some friends, they're really good at certain things. And then they're like, oh, they're very entrepreneurial, very creative as well. So they'll be like, oh, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do all these things. And I'm like, dude, you're so good at this. Why don't you just do more of that, right? And then they're like, yeah, maybe you're right. You're great at the barber stuff. And it's like once you start investing into other businesses, that's when it gets tricky, right? But one thing that I want to talk to you about, so was your mindset, which has really improved over the last years. You mentioned that you had, and this is from outside of the podcast, but again, that roller coaster a little bit in your personal life, and then it really went upwards, and you're up here right now. What was it like for you at your lowest? And if you don't want to go into that, we don't have to. But like, what caused that low point, and how did you get up to the point that you're at right now in terms of how you are mentally?
So I had situations where I even had to leave in the barbershop myself. So work and leave. So sleep in the barbershop because I couldn't afford to pay for a flat, an apartment. So to that point, it was the lowest, I would say. So finding the way, getting creative, and actually, it's not like when I really touched down that I had to close a commercial venue of 200 square meters because I couldn't pay all the debts that I had. So, and the only thing I had was basically my mirror, my barber chair. I pack all my tools. I pack all of this in a van, and I found out what could I get. So I couldn't get a commercial venue because they were all very much expensive, and I couldn't get there. And I wanted to work in the city center because I thought it's the only way to revert that situation because anyone working in this industry, they might know already that wherever you place your business, you can access a certain type of clientele.
Yes.
So basically, people with more or less power of purchase. Obviously, when you want to access people with more power of purchase, you need to place yourself in venues where the rental is higher. I couldn't do that. But I managed to get to like an office building. So it was basically offices of all kinds, architects, lawyers, translators, consultants. So I managed to get one of those offices and I placed the barbershop there on the 5th floor.
Not bad.
And that was a huge success. And I was living in that office. So I had like the barbershop on one side and I spare a small room where I had like a single bed. And that was my house.
And how long did that last? I mean, how long were you there for?
Oof. This was in the... So I think I had to close that business. It was 2009. And I had to move there. And basically all the way up till 2012 or 13, I think I had that because then is when I started to work a little bit more abroad. And then I had the opportunity to come here to Norway. I think that was in 2014. So yeah, more or less.
And that's when you started up the partners, the barbershop.
Exactly. The first barbershop in Norway was by then in 2014. Yes.
Yeah.
But before that, I was doing education. I was working purely as a barber educator.
Yeah. And then at some point, you mentioned that you had to go back, or you went back to Spain after you started up the barbershop here?
Well, yeah, recently we could say there was mostly for family reasons, you could say. But yeah, I was September 23 when I moved back, or I had to move back. I moved back, and then the business was not performing good. That was putting a lot of stress. Also for me to develop other business ideas that I was doing in Spain. So, but yeah, I got to the point that if I didn't come back and basically push hard to increase the liquidity. Well, basically, I had my accountant telling me every month, Salva, we have to close, we have to close, we have to close the business.
Wow.
The
Yeah.
there is no money, we the debt and so on. And we were behind payments, not only with let's say suppliers, but also the tax authorities.
Mm.
At that point, so it was basically impossible, and also struggling to get money for salaries and so on.
And it's incredible though that this was only, what is it now? Less than 2 years ago? Something like that, September 23?
Yeah, so September 23 was when I left, but of course 2023 was a terrible year for us because we were 7 employees, and from 7 employees, okay, I already planned pretty much that I was going to move by the end of that year. But everything dropped within the same year, because I had 4 employees going, me also, so that was 5. And only 2 were left, and we couldn't manage to get more people. And the problem with 2 is that, of course, we had to pay the, let's say, tax of being more people with less turnover, because 2 people cannot make the same amount, because usually the taxes you do not pay immediately, you pay 40 days after, right, the period that you have to pay the taxes. So that's, or let's say yearly, if you pay yearly. So if you have a bad 23, you're going to pay those taxes in 24. And if in 24 you only have 2 people working, you tell me how you're going to make it.
I mean, what changed, right? Because you went from basically going close to bankrupt to now performing incredibly well. Like, what was the shift? Was it personal? Did you do something? What made that big difference?
This was like calling the SWAT, special operations. So I saw it because I was doing, of course, I keep track of the accounting and the books of, the numbers of the company. So I always kind of plan ahead. I already try to forecast how much liquidity we're going to be moving according to the statistics. So I saw that, okay, we were, the first half of 24 went by, only 2 persons working, two employees, 2 barbers. We had to pay the holiday money, which is in July. So I saw, okay, if I do not act now, it's over. We are not going to do this, because then when this might be a little bit, but when you do not pay, or when you are delayed paying your employees basically, they feel something is going wrong. So it's exactly what kind of triggers all the red flags. Because of course I always prioritize the paying salaries of the employees, because also I know that it keeps a certain mindset. It keeps the mentality of the employee like, okay, things are up, I get paid, blah, blah, blah. So then I'm in my safe zone. If this doesn't happen, then the employee goes to work and keeps spinning ideas. Okay, what's wrong? What happened? Blah blah blah. So
why am I not getting paid? And then it affects them as well.
They will probably have conversations with the clients, and this is like a snowball. So you do not want, as a manager, to get that there, basically. And that's what I was trying to do. And exactly the same happened with the holiday money. Then we didn't have liquidity, so I say to myself, okay, I'm gonna fix that. I'm gonna go there. I'm gonna work, and whatever it takes. So
that was your mindset then, like whatever it takes.
Yes, 7 days a week, as many hours as possible. So that was okay. We need to. We go into the war. We are not thinking like, oh, let's have a, Aperol spritz in the sun. No, man. This now is time to push.
Yes, and I mean, like emotionally, how you're saying that you were going in for war, right? Just because you're going to do 7 hours a week, you're really going to push. In terms of how that emotionally impacted you, can you kind of recall what your mind, how you felt going into this? Was there stress? Was there, I can imagine, because it sounds like you were in a drowning ship and you had to like keep swimming to, keep going.
Okay, the stress and the pressure is there,
Uh,
but the faith was also there.
the
And the
faith.
faith was bigger than the stress and the pressure.
So you had
And
this
with the
belief and
faith,
faith that you were going to make it.
yeah. So yeah, because every time I been in a situation like that, like when I was basically like a flight or fight, I discover that I'm able to do amazing things.
Mm.
So that's why, and I already had this situation. Like I had to close a business. I had to live in an office. I've been struggling even to get to buy food, because I had situations where I was basically in huge pressure,
Mm.
financial pressure, and well, the big debt of
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
big numbers.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's why I said that I had to develop this kind of mentality of believing in myself and having faith and basically be thankful. So sometimes I think like, okay, some people have a lot to do and so on. Man, the more you have to do, the luckier you are. That's a blessing. You have work to do. That's a blessing. Some
Mm.
people want to work and they they don't manage.
Yeah.
You know, because you guys, it's what I said. You can be a barber and set and put yourself in the shop and just be there. I don't know, 20 hours a day. But
Yeah.
nobody is giving you the warranty that you're gonna fill up those 20 hours.
Mm.
How do you do that?
Yes.
You can put the time, but you cannot put the demand on the door.
That's true. One thing that I'm hearing what you said is you said that you had to develop a level of self-belief. And it sounds like it was a conscious choice that you made in terms of your mindset, how you were going to approach this, how you were going to kind of get into this state of constantly working. Was there anything specific that you said? A lot of people out there, right? They all have, like we spoke about earlier, everyone has problems, right? It could be small, could be big, could be, life or death in terms of financially, it could be anything. Very often you hear about people who have to fight in order to keep going, but they don't always manage. You mentioned that self-belief and that faith that you had was a big differentiator in terms of what made you able to keep going all that time. What was there anything specific that you told yourself? Like walk me through your internal monologue or verbally. How did you talk to yourself?
That's a very important thing. Obviously, our minds is a very powerful tool,
Mm.
and it's a tool which is already programmed to sabotage ourselves.
Mm.
So we need to be very careful in the way we speak to ourselves.
Yes.
And this is basically also what I realized. So the more strict I am programming my mind,
Mm.
the better it works,
Mm.
and the better benefits I get out of this. So things like reading,
Mm.
things like audiobooks, things like motivational speeches,
Yes.
things like I basically put myself in that box where everything that comes to my mind is like, yes, you're able to do it. Yes, it's
Mm.
difficult. Yes, this, but man, every day you will go a little bit further, every day a bit further. Today you did here, okay, tomorrow will be there, and maybe just 1%, but try to.
Mm.
It's like going to the gym. If you manage to lift 5 kilo dumbbell, maybe the next day try with a six.
Mm.
Maybe
Mm.
you do just 1 rep, but maybe the next day you will do 2 reps,
Mm.
and the day after three, and so on.
Mm.
So that's basically the same. I try to always go a little bit like one step further in
Yeah.
each situation. And,
Yeah.
and that's a bit the commitment that I have developed myself. You need to, I don't know, is what you said, it's a programming. So you need to learn, or one of the things that, and I'm still working on that. I'm not saying that I'm an expert, but one of the things that are extremely important is to learn how we could program our minds.
And when it comes to programming of mind, I've actually heard a lot about this, right? It's really about what you feed your mind.
Mm.
What information you add to your mind. It's like a lot of people who, and I don't remember the exact survey or the source of this, but there was they did research on people who watched the news and people who didn't watch the news and their overall mindset. And the people who watch news very roughly had a more negative mindset and a view on life in general. And the news really is a way for people to learn about stuff, but what gets covered on the news is most likely, most of the time, very often negative, right? you can debate,
It has to be negative.
Right. And so, but that is something that you get, it's an input, right? So you read it, terror or mass murder or stock market crashing or, negative, 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 negative. And all this information gets into your mind. And it's similar with social media as well, right? Where depending on what you follow, I mean, you can kind of tailor your profile in certain ways. So you can only see certain stuff, but still, right? So when it comes to that programming that you're mentioning, my understanding is really it's about the input that you get into your mind. And you mentioned books, you mentioned podcasts. I've heard people say as much as, it comes down to the lyrics in music even. Right? So when the lyrics are and no judgment, but like if you're listening to music that talks about suicide, kill myself, or stuff like that, or very depressing lyrics, is there a correlation between your mindset and how you're feeling? Right? So
100%.
Yeah. So I think there is a lot there when it comes to mindset, and you're a testament to that, right? Because you went from basically drowning to now on a yacht, essentially, right? If we're speaking metaphorically, like you're very comfortable, right?
So far metaphoric, but it will happen literally.
Yeah. Yes.
I'll do my best.
Yeah. And mindset for you was one key aspect, right? So feeding positive information into your mind, as well as probably, I don't know if you did affirmations or, very positive self-talk, but you also spoke to me about exercise and nutrition. Those were very important for you as well. Right? So when did that get introduced? Have you always done that? Have you always been this?
No,
No?
never. Indeed, I haven't done that, or I use common sense, but the same way we were talking about how to program your mind, because your thoughts is the food of your mind. Whatever you think is basically whatever you're bringing to the table, to feed your mind. So it was kind of interesting because one of the very first books about barbering that I read, it was talking very much in the first chapter about how to take care of yourself, you as a person. Why is that? Because, a barber you're going to sell image, you need to look good, right? It doesn't feel like congruent that you do not look good. So they were talking
about like a hobo.
Exactly, to not eat certain foods when you are at work, to avoid this and that, because you don't have to be smelly, you do not have to have, of course, body odor or breath, or not be well groomed, styled, and so on. Clean clothes, no matter if you work, and so on. The shoes, the same. So it was giving importance to so small details that I was kind of, wow, shocked. And I had many periods where I was dressed like whatever, and so on and so forth. And again, we cannot imagine the impact that this has on the type of clientele that we attract.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, we are humans. We try to basically pair with anyone that looks like us. So if you see someone that is like, okay, you feel like somehow, some affinity, some kind of, I feel identified, guess what's going to happen? You go there.
Yeah.
And the same applies as a professional. So if the food, and it's true, and I only eat fruits when I'm at work. because they are easy to digest. They do not smell garlic or whatever, or onions or heavy stuff that kind of blows up again from your stomach and your guts, you know. And I realized that how good I perform when it's like that. So I didn't understand by then. Now I know why.
So you used to eat fruits at work and you perform better.
Exactly. I try to eat before and after, but when I'm at work, I do not eat like a proper meal. I snack, but I snack healthy. I snack fruits. And that's what keeps me going on, you know, and I can deliver, you know, because I don't feel like I'm heavy. Usually when we eat a proper meal, we're heavy, we lose a bit of spark, you know, suddenly the blood goes to the gut and, you know, we are in a different mood.
Yes.
So I don't want that. I want to give the best of to every client, you know, because from the first to the last, they all deserve my very best performance. This is like going to, I don't know, your favorite rock band or music artist.
Yes.
You know, you pay for the tickets. What you expect in those 2 hours of concert is exactly not like because this is the first concert of the tour. It's gonna be better than the last.
Yeah, yeah. But one thing that you mentioned to me was because your diet, from what I remember, it was very clean, right? And it's you did some research or some not a degree, but
studies more than a research. So I registered myself into the IFBB course of nutrition specialist course, which is basically the IFBB, for whoever doesn't know, is the International Fitness and Bodybuilding Federation. They run courses and seminars for whoever is interested. It could be personal trainer, it could be expert in resistance training, which is basically strength training. So they have a module which is sports nutrition. So I was kind of interested in order to get a better comprehension and understanding. So I registered, actually it was not so long ago, in October, and I passed 2 exams. I was good with both. And then basically I learned how the body or the metabolism works, and also the type of different metabolism that exists as a human individual or biotype, we could say. So it's very important to learn it's called somatotype, because depending on which kind of metabolism you have, you will work better on carbs or protein or, you know, maybe fat also. So that's, some people, we heard about a lot of type of diets like keto diet or low carb, high carb, and so on and so forth. That's why, because some people do not tolerate carbs at all. Some people do tolerate carbs much better. So that's basically.
So yeah, because when you told me about your diet, it was so meticulous, so clean, so calculated, right? And obviously that was also in conjunction with exercise. It was daily, almost daily, or
I do, yes, daily.
Yeah.
7 days a week.
Yeah, that's insane, man. But it's something that you get into. Like I consider myself a very athletic, fit person. But I only exercise 4 to 5 times a week, right?
Is that mental fight. So I kind of like to challenge myself. I kind of like to push myself. And now it's like, okay, why I cannot do that? It's like, why I cannot work 7 days a week? You know, I mean, sometimes we say, oh, we need to rest and so on. Yeah, okay, why? Yes, we need to rest. Who said that? I mean, if you are quite strict on how you, because people sometimes say, oh, yeah, but when you do not have a social life and so on, like, well, okay, but where is written that we all have to have the same type of lifestyle? That's a bit my point, right? So, of course, I'm not a person which says like, okay, everybody should do this. No, I've been experimenting with myself. I started to work out. I never been a gym guy. I realized and I discovered that the gym has taught me a lot of good lessons that I could implement in my daily life. And my first approach to the fitness world was mostly to get fit, to lose some weight, because I was not having good habits in a period of my life, and that basically drove me to this kind of situation.
Yeah.
But after losing a bit of weight and getting into basically strength training,
Yeah.
so lifting weights, I realized like, wow, I discovered a bit the master lesson of this, which was this constant mental fight about you can do it.
Yeah.
You can do it. You need to tell yourself like, because has not picked a dumbbell or a barbell? I was like, wow, that's impossible. I cannot move that way. But we are telling ourselves that, and suddenly we do it, and it's like, wow, I manage.
I can do it. Yeah.
And that's exactly what hooked me to this.
You reinforce that belief of who you are and that you can do things, that you're able, even when you think that you can. It's like, well, let me do it. Let me try, right? And then you realize, hey, I can do it. And it's like a positive reinforcement loop.
Of course, not going crazy, everything within our capacities. And
you can't say, you can't tell yourself, like when you said, why not 7 days a week? Well, why not fly, right? let me jump off the building and see if I can fly.
100%.
But Salva, so I'm curious, what keeps you motivated? What keeps you going? What do you, even today, to this day, what keeps you going?
I would say habits and faith. That would be the bigger sum up in that sense, because your habits is what basically builds who you are as a person. If you have self-discipline, if you have it will impact in everything in your life. So the more or the better habits I have, the better I feel. The better I feel, the better I want to keep going. That's it's like when you eat, and this is for everything, when you put something toxic in your mind, basically it will impact your performance. When you eat something toxic, it will impact your performance. Anybody who has get drunk on a weekend, what happened the next day? You are hungover, so your performance is affected, obviously. You don't feel like doing anything. Imagine to work, imagine to whatever relationship, to talk to someone. That's exactly what for me works. So I got so addicted to feeling good. It's like I keep doing all of that.
That's amazing.
And I want to perform. I want to progress in life. So that's why I respect very much my rest, my eating, my nutrition, my training, because the more, or not the more I train, because I don't go to the gym 6 or 7 hours. I'm there maybe for 1 hour, 30 minutes, or maximum 2 per day.
It's still a decent amount.
I want to be healthy. I want to keep, I'm not thinking about retiring. I'm not thinking about all of these things. I'm thinking like, okay, I'm 41 years old, man. I need to last at least 100. So what am I going to do with those years,
Yeah.
I want to be on my 60s or 80s and feel like I'm a veggie.
I mean, it's there are a lot of people who it's very, very clear. So my mother, very similar to you in terms of exercise and food and diet and sleep. Like, she's always preaching to me, sleep, exercise, diet. Ever since I was a kid, she always emphasized this. She is what is it? She's 56 now, or 57. And she's still to this day doing triathlons. She is 200 just the other day she goes, I'm very casual. She says, I'm going to do 200 plus kilometers on the bike today. It's going to be fun, right? And then a while ago she said the same thing. So she occasionally does very long distance cycling. And then she said, I saw this new road and I decided to go on it, and I just took in an extra 50 kilometers, 60 kilometers, already on a 200 kilometer cycling trip. But she said it so casually, right? Which is quite funny. But my point here is that when I look at her, and I compare her to others her age. I mean, that person is never going to come across this podcast. So, but she
Mm.
met an old friend that was with her in school. Like they were the same age. They went to school together. And I was walking outside and she was talking to her. And I was like, who is this woman? And I just got in the car. And she said, oh, that was my old classmate. And I said, what? She looks like she's 70. And
Imagine.
yeah, and very often, but here's the thing. I compare my mom, who's almost 60 now, to people who are, you know, 40. But then I look at the average 60-year-old, and there is a huge difference. And then I take a step back and I say, well, what has my mom done differently? Why does she look so good for her age? Sleep, diet, exercise. And she performs incredibly well at work as well. And then I think to myself, like, yeah, if anyone should look at themselves and think about the habits that they should instill, it would be those three. And you're a testament to that as well, right? I mean,
We are meant to move. So,
yeah.
and what happened, most people, when they retire, what they do, they lose any kind of activity interest, and they end up in a couch watching TV. It's not doing anything good for ourselves. We are not built for that as a human species.
Yeah.
So that's why to move is important, to walk is important. It's a way to detox. Training is meant for that. It's for detoxing the body. And of course, if you feed properly the body, it's like there is this thing that is called the metabolic age. One thing is your biological age, another thing is your metabolic age. The higher you increase your BMI, so is your index, the metabolic index, basically the healthier you feel. So if, for instance, I think it was in this app that I use to check a little bit my body composition and so on. I discovered the other day they were saying like my metabolic age was 28.
Wow.
I'm 40. I'm 41. I'm turning 42 in 3 months.
Yeah.
So I was like, what the hell
That's
is
sick,
this?
man. That's sick. Yeah.
It was really interesting. And you feel not only in basically the body, but also the spirit, I don't feel like I have an old mindset or stuff like that. I feel quite young. I feel quite capable to do many things, So yeah, that works on that sense. That's why they say that when you work out, when you keep a good nutrition, you feel younger, because it's actually working in that sense.
Yeah.
In terms of energy.
And one thing I wanted to ask you is personal to me, but I mean, you mentioned you had an idea when it came to nutrition, right? Carbs, fat, like what worked for specific people. You've met me, you've seen me. I haven't told you about my diet, but based on my appearance and body type, are you able to tell what works well with me? And I can give you some information. I burn calories very fast. Like if I could eat fat, a lot of fat, I just don't gain weight.
Ectophobe.
Ectophobe?
Ectoform.
Ectoform. Is that with the K or C?
These are the somatotypes. There are 3: ectoform, mesoform, and endoform. So ectoform.
Oh, here we go. Yeah.
Ectoform are people that usually are thin. They burn a lot of calories. They never put on weight. So, and then mesoform is actually the opposite. In my case, I'm a mesoform. So I can put on weight if I don't eat properly. But I can tell you, I eat now 4,000 calories, sometimes even more.
When I hear that, but then it makes sense because you go to gym every day, right? So you burn a lot, you move a lot.
I burn over 3,000 a day.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
Also, when you get a bit more muscle mass, your body basically is demanding more calories because you burn more calories. Just resting, just doing nothing.
Yeah.
Just having more muscle, you burn more.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, cool. I'm going to check that out, ectomorph. And I wanted to ask as well, when it comes to you as a barber, obviously you are at a great position right now in terms of, it took some time to get there, but mindset, persistence, sheer will as well. you've gotten to a very comfortable spot in your life. For barbers out there that, look at you or want to learn from you, what would you tell a barber who wants to be more like you, to make as much as you? What should they do? What would you tell them?
Well, I would say for me, is basically to challenge yourself and to test yourself. Some people are fine by making 3K.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want to go any further. Me, I'm a curious man. If one day I made 3, then next year I want to see if I could make 4.
Yes.
Then now I'm making 20, but I'm okay. This hasn't stopped.
Yeah.
I want to see if I can make 25, if I can do 30. So it's like, why not? So you need to find, if people wants to really get there, you need to find your inner fire. In my case, okay, it's been also to be under pressure in many situations, but nothing moves you forward better than have a situation of fly and fight. Yeah. So in my case, was a big debt that I wanted to get rid of, where the house of my parents is involved, because I cannot say was, because still the debt is ongoing, although is more than 75% paid off. But for me, that was a bit the igniter. So it was basically what brought me to, man, I need to get this done. However, So of course, that fire is on me. I'm not sure if anyone could have it, but you need to have either a situation that basically you do not want that goes further in your life, or a very strong desire of whatever it is. If you dream like, okay, I want to be, the first millionaire barber, why not? Go ahead. You need to have that wish, that strong desire every day, in your heart. That is like, we have to dream. We kind of get, we grow up and then we start to get more, I don't know, steady,
complacent.
Yeah. So for me, it's like, I want to be, okay, be an adult, but at the same time have a bit of a mentality of a kid, because I want to be playful. I want to dream. I want to, that's what keeps me alive. What can I say? If we are, and then people look at you and you say, okay, I like to talk about my dreams. Why not?
Yeah.
When I say to people, well, I'm trying to be a millionaire.
Yeah.
They look at you like if you were a fool, but why not?
Yeah. Yeah. Here in Norway, it's a little frowned upon. It's like janteloven, like in Norway, it's
yeah. I know. But that's a good thing. But
I'm like you there.
I'm inside, but one step outside, because okay, maybe he says that because he's not born here.
I can't do that. I'm born in Norway, so if I start talking like that, they're going to be like, who does he think he is,
But my point is like, okay, I am in Norway. I do really love this country. I feel like Norway is kind of part of my life because I spent here more than 10 years. So for me, it's a very important part of my life, but I'm not saying that this is ending here. Today I'm here. I'm enjoying my day here, but maybe, 5 years, 10 years time, who knows? Maybe I'm in Tokyo.
Yeah.
Why not? Life is, it's only one act we have.
Yes.
So whatever you dream, whatever it comes to your feelings, go ahead. So, but of course we need to be, I think it's like being happy. I am happy. I am happy with what I have. I am happy in Oslo. I'm happy in Norway and so on, but I'm also dissatisfied.
Yes.
I also want to know what else I can do.
Yeah.
So I think that's a bit the position. So yeah.
That's amazing advice, man. I think what you're saying there is very true, not just for barbers, but across domains and industries as well. Like for anyone really because it really goes back to mindset, right? And how one should think, how one should, look at the world essentially. But Salva, I want to thank you so much for coming on today, man. It was
been a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no, it was very fun. It was also, the pleasure is all mine. And I'll have to come. I'll have to pay you a visit soon at the barber. I need a new haircut. It's getting a little bit long here. So.
Anytime. Most welcome.
Yeah. Awesome, man. All right. Well, we'll wrap it up. Take care.
Thanks a lot. Have a great weekend then.
You too, man. Bye bye.
Yeah, cheers.